Welcome to lesson 79 and part 1. And in lesson 79 I thought it would be just interesting to look at some of the great players and to really study some of the things they do that may seem unusual but work for them. Now, many of you will know that my mentor for over 30 years was the late great Alex Hay. Alex Hay was the managing director at Woburn Golf Club as well as the head pro. He became managing director and took Woburn to be the course that it is today, with the host of many major championships. Alex was a very talented artist and speaker, and he was also very good at writing and drawing. And one of his books, of 3 that he wrote, one was called The Mechanics of Golf. And it was a significant little book. It was simple, but beautifully illustrated by Alex himself. And he was inspired by Anthony Ravielli, the artist that did Ben Hogan's book, The Drawings. Alex did his first commentary for the BBC in 1978, and he was with them for 28 years. His first tournament was in 1978 at St Andrews, the year that Nicklaus won. The year before, Nicklaus had narrowly missed out at Turnberry to Tom Watson in the famous duel in the sun. And the commentary box was up on top of the Old Course Hotel at St Andrews, and Alex cut his teeth on that first British Open. Now, being a professional, he went down to the practice ground with his notepad and he wanted to observe the players, so that as he commentated, he was au fait with what they were thinking and doing and who their caddy was and a bit of history. But he found it rather daunting, because when he went down to the practice ground and there was 30 pros hitting shots, there were 30 different swings. It's not the case in the modern era. There are lots of swings that are very similar. They've still got the Dustin Johnsons and the Jim Furyk's and the Bubba Watsons, but broadly there's a bit more conformity to the golf swing and the golf game. But back in 1978, there was a million ways to skin a cat, it seemed to Alex. Now, one of my sporting heroes was Lee Trevino, and Alex would watch Trevino practice, and Trevino won a number of major championships with a very unusual swing and a very unusual way of playing. But it's well worth looking at him. Now, as Alex continued to study the swings on the tour, he realised that Christy O'Connor Jr. did this, and Mark James did the other, and Tony Jacklin and Sandelar and Nick Faldo, all very different. But as he studied them over the next couple of years, he started to pick up on things that they all did the same. So that's what we want to focus on, the things that the good players did. So whether you're Jim Furyk or Eamon Darcy or Bubba Watson, you'll find there are principles they have to adhere to. But their swing is so funky, of course, it's hard to spot. And Alex was very keen to press upon me that if a swing was unusual and quite funky, if it was working, then that funkiness was a characteristic. You only call it a fault if it wasn't working. And he taught me not to take away from what the player had. So if the player had an unusual swing but it's working, leave well alone. It's a hard thing for a teacher to learn. So let's talk about Trevino. Like Seve Ballesteros, he grew up in limited circumstances financially, only had one club. I think in Trevino's case it was a 5-iron, and he was raised in El Paso, Texas, and he found himself with quite an unusual setup. He learned to play, he caddied initially, and Trevino would start off with a swing with the feet pointing way left of the target, and this meant that the path of his swing was what we would call out to in. So if you take Trevino's open stance, feet, body and hips pointing left of target, this is what the swing looked like, and he was shut at the top. So I'll just do the backswing out of Trevino initially, and I'll go back above plane, and there's the fade spin movement in the golf ball. Now, when they measured Trevino's swing, and particularly the journey of his club head, they found that his club face, through impact and beyond, it was square for the longest on any swing in that era in the early 70s. So let's just look at that again. Trevino went in, the face was square to the target, his stance was open, he went back above the plane, he dropped slightly, and then as the club head came in, it stayed on that line. Now, this was exaggerated by the fact that he had to keep the blade open to the path to get the fade spin. So as he came into the shot, out to in, he kept the blade going through, the butt of the club stayed low, and he departed through here. And because he was going through the ball for such a long time, his body angle changed. So let's just have a look. Just watch my body angle. Here at address, to the top, hit the fade. My body has come up as the ball has faded from left to right. So what I want you to get from that is this. If you're playing across the ball and you're playing a fade spin motion, then it's not the end of the world if your body stands up. However, if you're hitting the ball from right to left, the last thing you want is the body angle changing. You see, if your body starts at this angle and finishes high, the amount you stand up is probably how far left you start the ball to the target. And as the ball starts left of the target, you then need to cut it. I once saw Tom Watson at Birkdale stand up on a 7-iron. So Watson would normally swing like this, through and up, high finish. But I saw him hit a shot, and he stood up, unusually for him, and the ball went 40 degrees to the left. So, from a distance, you think that Trevino was making a mistake because the body was lunging, but when the body stands up, as long as you're playing a fade mechanism, no great harm done. So here we go again. Open stance, above plane, in Trevino's case a bit bowed, and then he would come into the shot. So here we go. And the great catchphrase from Trevino was this: you can talk to a fade, but a hook won't listen.